Ladies and gentlemen, the presiding officer.
Please note the following safety rules. Should there be any reason for you to evacuate the chamber, use either of the two exit doors. Those who use the door located next to the public gallery are advised to proceed through the lobby to the front doors, down the main staircase to the muster point at James Park. Those who use the door located to the left of the presiding officer are advised to proceed to the gate leading to Backlet Street Extension and to the muster point at the Old Market Car Park. At the muster points, further instructions will be given by fire wardens or other authorized officials. Thank you for your attention.
Let us now pray. Let us now pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all citizens in this our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all the people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet, Assembly laws brought back from Parliament, petitions, papers, presentations of report from Dispute Resolution Commission, select committees, questions to secretaries, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries, personal explanation, introduction of bills, motion relating to the business or sitting of the Assembly and moved by the Secretary or Assistant Secretary, public business, Executive Council business, motion.
Whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is the largest employer on the island of Tobago, and whereas the challenging economic conditions make it difficult to maintain the number of people employed in the public sector, and whereas a significant number of trained residents have decided to stay in Tobago so that they can make a contribution to society's development. Be it resolved that the Tobago House of Assembly allocate more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully. The member for Bacolet, Mount St. George, you may now speak.
Madam Presiding Officer, I am thankful for this opportunity whereby this House can reaffirm its commitment to delivering the hopes and dreams of the Tobago people. This motion is perhaps the most important one for this New Year's fiscal that started September 2017. Madam Presiding Officer, global macroeconomic conditions are far from being ideal. Brexit threatens to destroy stability of the Eurozone. North Korea has all of Asia on edge. Terrorism intensifies globally. And Madam Presiding Officer, we are still trying to wrap our heads around the reality that Donald Trump is the new leader of the free world. In the Caribbean, we have had a devastating year with hurricanes. Economic growth continues to be low, but our debts are sky high. In Trinidad and Tobago, it isn't business as usual. Between August 2015 and August 2016, the Central Statistical Office, CSO, recorded an increase in food inflation by 7.6%. Last year into this year, the economy continued its contraction. Fiscal accounts went deeper into the red. Debt levels rose. Labor market conditions deteriorated. Foreign exchange reserves declined amid and continued tightness in foreign exchange market, and the country's debt rating came under pressure. God alone knows what 2018 will look like. Madam Presiding Officer, Tobago's economic situation is not isolated from the national, regional, or international economic pressures. If we are all honest, this is the hardest of the GOVA sessions. Luckily for Tobago, we have a productive team in charge of this island's affairs. Madam Presiding Officer, this motion rightfully says that the THA should allocate more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully. Madam Presiding Officer, the truth is that long before our economic conditions, the Tobago House of Assembly has been enabling an environment for entrepreneurship and private sector growth. So rightfully, we are seeking to do more. Already we have the Business Development Unit, which facilitates entrepreneurial development throughout the division and provides loans, grants, business coaching, and mentoring training, development, and project outreach programs. Madam Presiding Officer, we have an Enterprise Assistance Grant Program, which is an initiative for assisting jumpstart in Tobago's businesses. Then there is the Enterprise Assistance Fund. This is different from the Enterprise Assistance Grant. This loan facility is for expanding small businesses and sectors in Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, we already have the Financial Literacy Unit. This is a unit that promotes financial learning and executes education programs throughout Tobago. Sir, I raise this motion because we have to do more. We must all do more. Resources is more than money. More than money, we must develop human capital. We must re-educate our population. We must change the eat a food and give me a work mentality. We must teach our young people that they do not need the government to survive. We must teach our people to fish. Through this motion, the Executive Council is recommitting to openness and entrepreneurship as a development strategy, balancing business attraction and support for entrepreneurs, continuing entrepreneurship programs and services, investing in entrepreneurship development strategies, and a leadership team which is committed to entrepreneurship. We also have willingness to work to beyond Tobago's borders, to tap resources and to achieve success, and to support a campaign to encourage Tobagonians to buy Tobago's products first. Madam Presiding Officer, I hope the minority will find it necessary to support this motion. The members of the other side of this House will use their speaking time to explain how their divisions will be working towards creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish more meaningfully. Thank you.
The member for Roxborough Dallaford.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Good afternoon to the members of this House and the persons viewing on social media. Madam Presiding Officer, let me take this opportunity to thank the Assembly Legislature, the Executive Council, and the NLCB for their support of the Youth Assembly. It is indeed a privilege to once again address the Honorable House. As we are all aware, debates in this chamber began almost 200 years ago. Today, Madam Presiding Officer, as the leader of the Youth Minority Council, I am frightened. This motion at face value seems well-intended, but as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. In examining the construct of this motion, one can only conclude that the mover of this motion was less than sober and divorced from logic. Madam Presiding Officer, I do hope in his second opportunity to speak to this House, the member for Bacalet, Mount St. George, after listening the learned contribution of the members on the Youth Minority Council, would quickly reword his presentation and present an amended resolution. An amended resolution, Madam Presiding Officer, reflecting his true intellectual capacity. Madam Presiding Officer, we on the minority bench are not here to say no to this motion. We have recognized that the development of entrepreneurs is critical to the development of the young persons on this island. However, if we are to be guided by this motion, the young people we represent would be similar to lost sheep guided by lost shepherd. As such, Madam Presiding Officer, let me take this opportunity to point out the many flaws in this motion. Members opposite, I also urge you to take note and review the contributions of the Youth Minority Council on Facebook and YouTube after this debate has concluded. Madam Presiding Officer, the preamble states, and I quote, "And whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is the largest employer on the island of Tobago." Certainly, Madam Presiding Officer, the mover of this motion should have been able to quantify the term largest. What is he talking about when he says largest, Madam Presiding Officer? Is it 5%? Is it 2%? Is it 20%? Please, member for Bacalet, Mount St. George, reword your motion and be specific. As I continue to quote, and whereas the challenging economic conditions make it difficult to maintain the number of persons employed in the public sector. Madam Presiding Officer, are the members on the other side stating that if the economic conditions were not challenging, that the Tobago House of Assembly would have continued to play parent and employ individuals at the current levels? Again, Madam Presiding Officer, how many of the current staff of the Tobago House of Assembly do the members opposite consider idle? How many of the current staff are surplus? How many of the current staff have reached retirement age? How many new members of staff would the Assembly be hiring in 2018, 2019, and 2020? In other words, Madam Presiding Officer, is there a strategic human resource management plan, or is the mover of the motion just trying to cut jobs? Madam Presiding Officer, as I continue to quote, be it resolved that the Tobago House of Assembly allocate more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully. Madam Presiding Officer, if I'm not mistaken, the member opposite said that they were creating this a long time ago. So why is the word creating still in the resolution? This brings me, Madam Presiding Officer, to the third part of the preamble. It says, and I quote, and whereas a significant number of trained residents decided to stay in Tobago so that they can make a contribution to the society's development. Madam Presiding Officer, it appears to me that the members opposite are confirming my suspicions that the Tobago House of Assembly does not need significant numbers of trained residents. They, through this motion, have indicated that the trained persons should seek private sector jobs and not a THA work. To members opposite, this may sound good, but this well-intended thought should be erased from their minds. Madam Presiding Officer, there is need for entrepreneurship. However, simply seeking to cut public sector jobs in the face of an economic challenge under the guise of creating entrepreneurs is a recipe for disaster. The public service in Trinidad and Tobago is modeled after the public service in the United Kingdom. Madam Presiding Officer, I urge the members opposite to read the publication by PricewaterhouseCoopers entitled Productivity in the Public Sector, What Makes a Good Job. In this document, the role for highly skilled public sector workers was identified. According to this report, Madam Presiding Officer, and I quote, public sector workers have higher level of education than their counterparts in the private sector. About 57% of workers in the public sector have some form of higher qualifications in 2012-2013, compared to 36% of private sector. Madam Presiding Officer, I suspect that if a similar study was conducted in Tobago, the results would be the same. Madam Presiding Officer, the majority side should strike, as is being done in UK, to 1, think harder about productivity in the public sector, 2, engage staff and connect them to the organization's purpose, and 3, develop the HR department and strategic planning capabilities. Madam Presiding Officer, the other eloquent speakers on this side will elaborate further on the flaws in this motion. As difficult as it may be to educate the members on the other side, it is indeed unfortunate that I would not be able to respond to the weak arguments that I anticipate the members opposite will make. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
The member for Blackrock, Wim Spring Garden.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, as Chief Secretary and the Secretary for Education, Innovation and Energy, I propose to add context to the motion by presenting a wider range of policy issues of my administration as it relates to the motion. Madam Presiding Officer, it is not by accident that innovation is part of my portfolio and that it is linked to education, nor is it by accident that the enterprise development has been linked with community development to form the division of community development, enterprise development, and labor. Madam Presiding Officer, the reconstruction of the divisions of the Assembly is intended to reflect the focus of my administration on creating an environment of entrepreneurs on the island to flourish meaningfully. Madam Presiding Officer, I wish to place on record that our current dependence on oil and gas cannot continue to be our main source of revenue in Trinidad and Tobago. Depending on crude is still not suitable enough to drive our country forward. Let us take into consideration the historic dependency upon crude. Back in time of the late, great A.N.R. Robinson, we would have seen a decline in our revenues based on this dependency of crude. This would have also reoccurred again in 2008 with the fall of the U.S. stock market. Just take a look at this chart, and you can see, you may not understand what's on it, but the brown represents the oil and gas which we have been exporting. This oil and gas adds up to more than 60% of our export. This simply cannot be our only export that drives the country. Madam Presiding Officer, you can see that these challenging times that we are currently faced with is not something new. It has happened in the past, and because we have not learned from our past experiences and diversified our economy, here we face these issues again. These issues of the past that we now must devise a plan to conquer these issues. Madam Presiding Officer, there are tremendous opportunities in our agro-processing industry, small enterprise industry, tourism industry, and even the marketing of Tobago as a brand in the terms of promoting our cultural heritage. Madam Presiding Officer, THA employs approximately 63% of the workforce on the island of Tobago. With the development of the industries mentioned before, it is estimated that 10% of the workforce employed by the THA would be absorbed in these sections. Therefore, our focus must be on training the development of persons, particularly young persons, who would become equipped to take up these employment opportunities. Madam Presiding Officer, by diversifying our economy, we are creating more suitable means that we can stand in the face of these crisis times. Apart from that, Madam Presiding Officer, we can diversify our workforce. Taking into consideration that we want to become a more robust society with transparency and accountability, we would need more professionals in our society that can execute tasks at a level of par excellence and on the same scale as our global partners. Madam Presiding Officer, we must create an environment of flexibility, transparency, and accountability in the way we utilize our resources and the budget allocation provided by the central government. Therefore, we propose to revisit our enterprise assistance to small businesses to offer greater support and guidance in business development. Madam Presiding Officer, with such a diverse workforce, we are able now to sustain our economic growth, to ensure that we move from one phase to another as we continue to develop our country, as we continue our country's development. Madam Presiding Officer, now that is innovation. That is sustainable economic development. That is human capital development and growth for our society. I thank you.
The Minority Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I would like to say thank you to the member. I would like to say thank you on behalf of the minority leader to the member opposite for the percentage provided. Madam Presiding Officer, I would like to ask the members on the opposite side what is entrepreneurship and who is an entrepreneur. In an article written by Bill Arlett, manager of Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneur, entrepreneurship is described as being neither a science nor an art. It is a craft. Bill Gates, one of the most famous entrepreneurs, says, and I quote, "Being an entrepreneur isn't really about starting a business. It's about looking at the world, seeing obstacles, and taking tasks where others take refuge." Entrepreneurs should be enthusiastic, optimistic, and future-orientated. I must ask, Madam Presiding Officer, do we have these features in entrepreneurs today? This motion was brought to the Honorable House today aimed at helping entrepreneurs to flourish. But I must ask this question. Do we, residents of Tobago, have these traits outlined by our famous Bill Gates? Do we have the capacity created for the kind of entrepreneurship? Or, Madam Presiding Officer, do we have mere small businessmen? To address these questions, let me draw your attention, Madam Presiding Officer, to the Micro Mall at Argyle. This newly built mall, Madam Presiding Officer, was constructed with the funds from the THA, to boost entrepreneurship in Tobago. But, Madam Presiding Officer, many constituencies of the area would disagree. They will say this mall does not contribute to entrepreneurship, economic growth, or the development of Tobago. As many of the small businesses open their booths whenever they feel like, or as one of the constituents will say, whenever they feel to make a dollar. However, boosting entrepreneurship on our sweet island of Tobago, is the boosting of entrepreneurship on our sweet island of Tobago, how is it initiative to boosting this growth, Madam Presiding Officer? Rather, we see a waste, let me stress, a waste of government funds going down the drain. These funds of government spending, Madam Presiding Officer, could have been instead used to educate our youths at school on the values and principles of entrepreneurship. By doing this, this will mold a better and sustainable future. So, Madam Presiding Officer, as I conclude my presentation, I must say that I am in full support of my leader's argument and those of my fellow colleagues on the minority side, that this motion is poorly constructed. I am of firm belief that management needs to be allocated against the existing structures we have and work towards making them beneficial for the people of Tobago. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Councillor Kershel-Pear.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Members of the opposite side, my fellow colleagues, I strongly agree with this motion. Young persons experience various sectors of the labor force during secondary schools. An annual average of the workforce that attains secondary education is a whopping 53% out of the total labor force, 32,300. Madam Presiding Officer, we as young citizens have potential, talents, abilities, and creativity. Just imagine we have students with great potential right here in our soil. Chrisanne Mackenzie, a born Tobagonian, and student of Speyside Secondary School, top agriculture science in Cape and wants to pursue greater development in this agriculture sector in Tobago. She suggested, and I quote, if a child is taught to plant from young, and I say young, if he or she is allowed to sell at least 10 crops for $5, and I stress in, $5, Madam Presiding Officer. That a child would know the value of food's production and understand that there is money in such things. Another student by the name of Kemuel Henry Abraham, who placed 4th in Cape as well, in the sector of building and mechanical engineering drawing. He said, and I quote, my plan was to aim to get a grade 1 to achieve a scholarship to broaden my horizon along my career path. Making various sectors in this education system can be compulsory to students who are determined to expose their business to the public and improve in the economic development in the country. Madam Presiding Officer, our universities in Trinidad and Tobago should nurture upcoming entrepreneurs into taking risks. According to this website, www.economist.com, America has a tradition to close relations between universities and industries, and it is so keen on promoting entrepreneurs that has created a monopoly-like game to teach its professors how to become entrepreneurs. We have young Trinbagonians who have studied abroad and have taken risk in creating amazing inventions in various sectors during tertiary level. Universities in Tobago, such as UTT and UWI, can broaden from different sectors with the program for stakeholders, undergraduates, whose interests are pursuing in degrees, bachelor's and master's in their career in a particular sector and can be exposed to other sectors within the universities in Tobago. I thank you.
Member for Belgarden Goodwood.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, for allowing me to address the House. Good afternoon to one and all. Trinidad and Tobago has experienced a phenomenon in which volumes of foreign exchange were earned in the oil and natural gas sector. This contributed to few jobs, but increased the exchange rates and made other imports less competitive. Madam Presiding Officer, the agriculture sector remains an important part of the economies of the Caribbean, but its role is rapidly changing. Until recently, agriculture accounted for the major share for the export earnings of most countries. This has much to do with the changes to external markets for traditional export commodities. In all Caribbean countries for which data is quite available, the contribution of agriculture to gross domestic product has fallen over the 5 past years. The reduction has been extremely dramatic for Barbados, Dominican Republic, Tobago, and by extent, Trinidad. In presenting an overview of the Tobago agro sector, Mrs. Darylyn Smart, president of the Tobago Agro-Processors Association, also known as TAPA, indicated on Wednesday, the 6th of December 2016 in the Guardian newspapers that Tobago's predominantly small-scale agro-processing enterprises continue to face production problems accounted for inadequate and inconsistent supply of raw materials. She lamented the unreliable supply of raw materials were one of the major constraints to production flows experienced by agro-processors in Tobago, along with the minimization of financial supports. According to the president of the Tobago Agricultural Society, Mr. Macheson Neptune, stated on Wednesday, the 4th of December 2017 in the TNT Newsday papers that if at least $1.3 billion is allocated to the agriculture sector, it could mean a deep improvement. Madam Presiding Officer, there is a new agricultural financial support program which grants new and existing farmers up to $100,000, which would have taken effect on the 1st of December 2017. This grant is to encourage farmers, and once implemented, there will be a big improvement for Tobago and by extent, Trinidad agriculture sector. Madam Presiding Officer, the division has provided resources such as a packing house to make it easier for farmers to sterilize and package goods for sales. We support agro-processors so we can enhance the farm-to-table experience for Tobagonians. The objective is to formulate solutions to the problem of serious material and technical deficiencies that retard the development and slow the pace of their emergence as a significant economic factor. It is now imperative that we engage in more sustainable farming methods in order to have a viable agriculture sector in the years ahead. The ministry's farming initiatives must be geared towards building the capacity of small-scale factors to implement sustainable farming practices. Madam Presiding Officer, you cannot, and I repeat, you cannot produce crops if there is no one to work on the farms. Agriculture engenders good sense, and if we estimate dignity by immediate usefulness, agriculture, the first noble science, will bloom. Madam Presiding Officer, take for example, if you tickle the earth with a hoe, she laughs with a harvest. So I thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I take my seat in peace.
Members, order, please. Thank you. The member for Palliative Vale and Semi-Speyside.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, I am seeking a redress on this social phenomenon. Many businesses on the island, due to challenging economic times, have failed, and few are functional in this devastating economy. I will be speaking on 2 points. Point 1, resources required for starting up a business, and point 2, the disposition of persons towards risk-taking. Madam Presiding Officer, permit me to ask my government, our government, where are the resources required for starting up a business? Because if there are no resources or not enough resources, the businesses will fail. In Tobago, there are a number of different businesses that are poorly managed with little or no resources. and these businesses must compete against flourishing businesses both at home and abroad. Madam Presiding Officer, in Tobago, there are several businesses, the agricultural production, which is practiced by many Tobagonians, garment construction, photograph business, and daycare centers, just to name a few. But are these businesses getting all the resources that are required to keep them growing? Based on my research, I discovered that small business opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago, especially the agricultural production, received 100% funding. Now, what about the other businesses, for instance? The tailors, the barbers, the hairdressers, even the taxi drivers. What funding is allocated for these businesses, Madam Presiding Officer? If the agricultural production is taking all of the profits and the resources, there will be nothing left for the other businesses to grow on. Madam Presiding Officer, we need to diversify our economic, as some of the businesses are forced to compete against other existing businesses that receive financial assistance or incentives from the government. How can our government decide to pump resources into entrepreneurship and fail to encourage diversity within our economy? Madam Presiding Officer, the other side needs to take this into consideration as I move to point 2 of my presentation. Has the government ever considered that generally persons may not be inclined to take risks because they are afraid of failure, that the business may not flourish as they expected, they may even spend more than they earn, and because of that, businesses may not be forced to close, The resources that were used and wasted on those businesses could have been allocated to start up a business and may effectively contribute to economic growth and development within Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, Senator, the Honorable Pamela Kupiskun, Minister of Trade and Industry, said at the 2nd Annual Caribbean Risk Management Conference that risk management have been around for a very long time. Even though it started after World War II, it was brought about to protect individuals and companies from a number of losses associated with accidents. She went on to say that throughout the 1970s, that was when risk management started to kick into full action and went on to develop. She also noted that under the risk management in the public sector, that the government is not doing whatever it takes to minimize waste, eliminate fraud and mismanagement. Madam Presiding Officer, does maximizing the chances of economic growth allow for greater diversification and increased investment? Madam Presiding Officer, what is the Tobago House of Assembly really focusing on? They should be focusing on uplifting the right sectors and market and attracting the right types of sustainable investment that will benefit all the people of Tobago. Despite the best of intentions of the Tobago House of Assembly, it is often more difficult for the public institutions to take risk rather than for private companies. Madam Presiding Officer, in closing, I would just like to say that if these points are to be resolved and dealt with properly, the representatives must sit down and further discuss a way forward to deal with the challenges facing entrepreneurship in Tobago. Thank you.
The member for Lambo Signal Hill.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, and good evening to one and all. It is absolute ridiculousness if anyone chooses to oppose to this motion. Entrepreneurship should be cherished because it creates the conditions for a prosperous society. According to Peter Drucker, he says that the best way to predict the future is to create it. So if we produce more entrepreneurs, rest assured that 20 years down the road, economic expansion will take place. Entrepreneurial ventures literally produce new wealth. Let me explain how they do this. All the new and improved goods and services that our entrepreneurs provide allows new market to be developed and therefore new wealth to be created. A child is like a seed. If we provide it with good nourishment, it will eventually begin to flourish. But if we fail to provide it with the good nourishment that it needs, it will eventually wither away. You reap what you sow. So, therefore, we will reap what we sow. If a more robust education system is created, there's no doubt that innovative thinking will be instilled at a very tender age. So by the time our little ones are in high school, they already have, if not one, many business ideas. Madam Presiding Officer, according to the Statistical Labor Market Report for 2016 from the Division of Finance, the total labor force consists of 323 persons, and of that, 309 have a job. Stemming from 309, a total of 3 individuals without a degree is included. But look at this. 48 persons who attained a degree, diploma, or certificate is employed. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not need to have a degree or employment to make a change. All you need is a creative mindset. Without oh God. Sorry. Okay. Without the shadow of a doubt, entrepreneurship will cause a significant decrease in illicit activities. We have lost too many lives to heinous crimes. And for the protection and safety of this island's valuable citizens, I believe that the time has come for us to tackle the situation head on. Entrepreneurship can be considered as the modern-day crime stopper. Why, you may ask? After the treacherous years of high school, we find that most of our youth tend to venture out for government employment because they believe it is stable. Why, you may ask? Approximately 3,000 persons graduate each year, and about 2,000 crave a government job. Around 300 public sector jobs are offered, which means that out of the whole 2,000, 300 will be employed. So what is to become of those who are unemployed? Well, government and give me a job how to make money some way, somehow. Let me go and sell a little marijuana. Or let me go and carry to a little job and shoot down somebody. You see, our youth today believe that if they are unsuccessful in attaining a government job, all hope is gone. And that is very sad. As of 2011, the government of Qatar really began to support entrepreneurs and startups by providing training programs, facilities, and financial support. And watch this now. That same country is proven to have the 7th lowest crime rate globally based on the Global Crime Index by Numbeo. Also, during 2016 and 2017, Qatar has placed first, #1, in the Gulf and Arab countries in the World Peace Index. So as we see, after the government really began to put certain measures in place to create new entrepreneurs and also support the current entrepreneurs, good things began to happen, to the point where the Olympic Games in 2020 will be held in Qatar. So you don't know, plenty hotel going and book up, and new market will be attracted. It's like a domino effect. One thing triggers off a next thing. But in this case, one great thing triggers off many other great things. And it could basically say your country done set.
Members, order please and thank you. The member for Scarborough called the hall.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
It is unbelievable that anyone would oppose this motion because it will not only encourage our young adults to have big dreams, but to also to boost our country's economy. We have given out funds in the past, but the difference between those allocations and this incentive is the new approach. One country that has had a predictable economic growth is America, because successful businesses and the labor force has worked together with entrepreneurs. They have had funds like the American Research and Development Fund that encourages the private sector to invest in businesses run by soldiers who are returning from World War II, and the Highland Capital Partners that encouraged career professionals to bring in entrepreneurs. It has been proven through the IHS, the Global Insight, a consultancy which calculated in 2005, companies that supported the entrepreneur in variety accounted for nearly 17% of the American GDP and 9% of the private sector's employment. We believe that we can adopt these principles and their success story to better our economy. Instead of just giving funds to entrepreneurs and not looking back, we will bring professionals to train them on how to run their business more efficiently and effectively manage their money. For example, teaching a talented seamstress on how to run her business and accounting. When we say allocation of resources, we just don't mean giving money to entrepreneurs, but housing the businesses run by entrepreneurs and charge them a small rent which is paid to the government. They will be housed in government buildings that are not used, and they will be refurbished. With a rise in the business sector means a rise in the revenue through taxation of businesses. Ordinary businesses are taxed at a rate of 25 to 30%. Madam Presiding Officer, imagine you're collecting $1,250 from one small business, and in that year, the taxation revenue will be $15,000. And then 500 small businesses with the same taxation revenue would be $7.5 million. And with this incentive, these businesses will develop and grow into bigger businesses, and so will the economy. So please tell me as to why this motion will be opposed. And if so, is it that the minority side is afraid of taking risks? Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
The member for Boko Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, while carefully conducting my analysis and research on this motion, I was able to obtain statistics from a member of staff from the Division of Finance, which unfortunately did not include any evidence of monitoring and evaluation being done on entrepreneurial businesses in Tobago. In fact, Madam Presiding Officer, this is not in reach of public viewing, whether it is at the Legislators' Library, the Division of Finance's website, or any repository of accredited knowledge on this island. According to an article in the Guardian newspaper dated Friday, November 24th, page 16, over the past years, 600 plus recipients received over $2.3 million in grants. Why should we continue to allocate monies without this said evidence? We need transparency, we need accountability, we need accessibility. How else are we to be sure that we are receiving the value of our investment? Madam Presiding Officer, according to the construct of this motion, it seems to me that all we are trying to do here is quickly reduce the number of THA workers, rather than to properly erect another way of building entrepreneurship. Monitoring and evaluation are of key importance, and if this administration is responsible as they are said to be, they will ensure that this happens. Let me again reinforce, as my colleague stated earlier, we are not saying no to this motion. We simply do not support its construct. According to the Project Management Institute, these two factors have been used in various institutions like the World Bank and European Union for projects of this nature. And it is proven that they allow you to develop insights on your businesses. In that way, you are able to detect issues and you can make suitable adjustments to businesses, whether it be to improve their performance, their relevance, their reliability, and accuracy. Madam Presiding Officer, it has also been brought to my attention that there are 4 financial programs that are operating currently according to the fiscal budget for 2017. They are the Enterprise Assistance Fund, allocating $30 million to 300 Tobagonians from the period 2003 to present. There is also the Enterprise Assistance Grant Program, allocating $13 million to 750 Tobagonians from the period 2011 to present. There is also the Venture Capital Equity Fund, allocating $5.2 million in the period 2016, along with the Business Development Unit, allocating $486,000, also in the period 2016. This, Madam Presiding Officer, brings us to a sum total of $48,686,000. 48.7 million, Madam Presiding Officer. What is the success rate of these businesses? What is the fail rate? How are we to be knowledgeable of this information without evidence of monitoring and evaluation? According to an abstract of entrepreneurship development policy approach for Trinidad and Tobago, appears to be missing is a field of concentrated research and evaluation. Studies should be supplementary. I must say that while it is important to invest in entrepreneurship, we are to understand that it is an accessible field to a wide variety of our population, and therefore we are to ensure that results are transparent, accessible, and that we can account for all of it. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
The member for Bethel Mount Serving.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I want to draw your attention to a solemn warning given by the Honorable Mr. Joel Jack, Secretary for Finance and Enterprise Development, in his fiscal budget statement in June of this year. He said that the current challenges facing our Twin Island state requires urgent action within the private sector of Tobago, which remains a critical pillar for the future development strategy of Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, our private sector industry, it needs to be encouraged and set on a growth path to accommodate approximately 1,000 enterprising students who leave school each year and wish to join their workforce. In the past, the Tobago House of Assembly was the prime employment opportunity for most of these students. Thus, we must ensure that our island's economy is in readiness each year to absorb this new eager working class group and provide them with sustained employment. Only last month, the Division of Health and Social Services, under the Realization of Economic Achievement REACH program, gave grants to 27 recipients. This THA program has successfully been able to distribute $2.3 million to over 600 recipients over the years here in Tobago from its inception in 1984. I want to emphasize that our island of Tobago is blessed with brilliant minds that can move this island into a strong economic development. As my colleague would have stated earlier, the exceptional performances of Kemuel Abraham in the Cape 2017 Building and Mechanical Engineering Drawing subject and Ms. Chrisanne McKenzie in Agricultural Science bears testimony to this fact. Madam Presiding Officer, the Tobago House of Assembly will protect and retain on behalf of the people of Tobago, the main resource of this island. These young, brilliant minds, all of the 1,000 employable graduating students each year who genuinely enter the market with the hope of finding sustained employment. In 2016, the Secretary for Finance and Enterprise Development at the Career Fair, organized by the Youth Energized for Success YES program, told the young people present as he opened the fair at the John Dyer Community Center that they are the future leaders and challenged them to create their own success. He let them know that they were to use all the tools which they had to fearlessly pursue even that which is unfamiliar. Thus, they are to be the innovators and creators of new business ideas for the development and progress of themselves. Madam Presiding Officer, our youths can do it. Yes, we can do it. We can help to move this economy of Tobago to a buoyant, innovative, productive, and self-sufficient economy. But, Madam Presiding Officer, they will require our help. That is why the Tobago House of Assembly will have to allocate more of its resources towards creating an environment for entrepreneurship, in particular among our youths, for them to flourish meaningfully. The Assembly will provide more funding to continue the successful work of a number of the past initiatives and for the development of new unaddressed areas of the economy from which we can benefit tremendously. Madam Presiding Officer, we see that the Enterprise Assistance Fund Loan Program in the year 2016 was able to approve and disburse to successful applicants 1.3 million and a total of 30 million from its inception. Similarly, another successful initiative of the Assembly, the Enterprise Assistance Grant Program, was able to disperse grants to the tune of 13 million since the introduction of the program in 2011 to over 750 young enterprising Tobagonians. Madam Presiding Officer, it is estimated that 75% of Tobago's fertile arable lands are currently underdeveloped, which creates a great potential for the expansion of the economy of Tobago into this sector. There is no doubt that this funding, which we are requesting for the expansion of the agricultural sector's infrastructure and for the provision of necessary training and grant funding to all of Tobago's youths who are desirous of setting up an agricultural business, will exponentially benefit and sustain our island's economy. The increased funding will develop the self-sufficiency and productiveness of our island's youths, who are now determined to stay and work on this island. Madam Presiding Officer, we must reserve the tide of our dependency of having to import such things such as bananas, pineapples, sweet potatoes, cassava, other fruits and vegetables for sale in Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, as I close, the youths are our future. The people of Tobago are confident in us, and with our conscious commitment to stay in Tobago to work and contribute to the society's development, this Assembly will support us fully in ensuring that we find our niche in this island's potential, lucrative private sector economy. If we only sow the seed and don't nurture the plant, Madam Presiding Officer, how can we reap the benefit. I thank you.
Councillor Giovanni Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. The proposal that Tobago House of Assembly should allocate more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully should be mandatory. Entrepreneurship is the capacity and the willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make profit. The most obvious example of entrepreneurship is the starting of a new business. As stated in the motion, the Tobago House of Assembly is the largest employer on the island of Tobago. This can be proven easily by looking at the labor force report obtained from the Division of Finance. However, allocating more resources to entrepreneurship is critical, I repeat, it's critical in the reduction of the high percentages of persons working for the Tobago House of Assembly. Additionally, it will help in the development and the self-reliance of Tobago. I will now give my opposition a moment to marinate on that information while I take a sip of water. Madam Presiding Officer, allow me to recall that our budget statement for 2018 was themed Unleashing Creativity and Positivity of our people. I will repeat, unleashing the creativity and the positivity capacity of our people, and treating with the following sub-themes, just to recall a few: building economic resilience, forging innovation and creativity, reviving our agricultural sector, developing our human capacity, not forgetting holistic development of our young adults, empowering and building communities. The common thread underscoring all these sub-themes, Madam Presiding Officer, the creation of an environment in which entrepreneurship can flourish meaningfully. This is the reason that this motion was presented. Madam Presiding Officer, and most importantly, I am calling on the members of the opposition to support this resolution. The committees in which they represent will be beneficial of their vote in favor of the motion, Madam Presiding Officer. The motion timed to follow the observation of Finance Week held in mid-November under the theme Embracing Innovation, Enhancing Financial Possibilities, and Ensuring Economic Stability. You may recall, Madam Presiding Officer, that during the week we held the 11th Annual Tobago Economic and Business Outlook Conference with emphasis on prescriptions for Tobago. Speakers include Sir Rundle Sanders, Ambassador Extraordinaire. Thank you, Mr. Joel. And diplomat for the United States and the Organizing of American States. Economist, Mr. Terence Forel, and Ian Chinapu, Executive Director of Unitrust Corporation, or UTC, a real sense of our economic overview. The Youth Empowerment Forum features speakers including business development consultants at Jinapo, Caribbean Limited, Shasha Lane, and the CEO of Billionaires League App, Sheldon Powell. And more recently, Madam Presiding Officer, I used the opportunity of our observation of the Tobago Day that was held on the 4th of December to call on our citizenry to forge ahead in unity, and to make a positive contribution to the Tobago we want to see and to leave as a legacy. It is against the background, Madam Presiding Officer, that I call on all the members of this Honorable House to support this motion of allocating more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully.
Member for Canaan Bonaccord.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Good afternoon to the members of the August House, members of the public gallery, and to those viewing this sitting on social media platforms. Madam Presiding Officer, permit me, before I make my direct contribution towards this motion, to once again say thank you to the National Lotteries Control Board, the Assembly Legislature, the Presiding Officer, and the Executive Council for their support of the Youth Assembly and the Westminster Study Tour. As a student of the Pentecostal Light and Life Foundation High School, I would also like to thank the school's board, principal, and staff for their vision and encouragement. Today, Madam Presiding Officer, the Pentecostal Light and Life Foundation High School can boast of having 4 students contributing towards this debate. How do you wish to fund more money when we can't find the 8 million yet? Madam Presiding Officer, I will be addressing the area of the resolution which speaks to the allocation of more resources to create the environment of entrepreneurship. As my colleagues would have mentioned before, Madam Presiding Officer, in laying this motion, the member for Bacolet Mount St. George should have provided this House with a clear indication of the monitoring and evaluation system being put in place. As we have all been made aware, millions of dollars have already been expended on entrepreneurial activity, on the island. This being said, however, the Division of Finance and the Economy's website lists a grand total of 7 success stories. Let me say this again, Madam Presiding Officer, with millions being spent. The Division of Finance and the Economy can only list 7 success stories. The individuals who took the risk and started these 7 successful businesses should and must be commended. However, Madam Presiding Officer, the member for Bacolet Mount St. George, the Deputy Chief Secretary, and the Secretary for Finance and the Economy should look himself in the mirror and ask himself the following question. With millions of dollars in grants being distributed, why only 7 successes? How many persons can the Tobago House of Assembly reasonably expect 7 small but successful businesses to employ? What percentage do these 7 businesses contribute to Tobago's GDP? Why only 7? Madam Presiding Officer, while the member for Bacolet Mount St. George seeks these answers, let me assure him that while he may be, all is not lost. My electoral district, however, Canaan Bonaccord, can now be considered the center of Tobago's economy. As a matter of fact, we are all aware of several new businesses in my electoral district that are flourishing quite well. Many of these businesses would have developed independent of the THA funding.
In fact, many of these businesses would have benefited from angel investors. It is quite interesting that the members opposite seem all too willing to invest THA's limited and at times missing funding, when the administration on our sister isle is exploring the use of angel investors. During his 2017 budget presentation, Minister of Finance Colm Ilmbert was quite clear that central government would shift its policy from using government funding and resources to create an entrepreneurial environment and would be moving towards angel investors and other alternative financing arrangements. Why then are the members opposite pursuing the course of action outlined in this motion? Madam Presiding Officer, entrepreneurial activity, is only one aspect in developing a sustainable society. The policies of the Tobago House of Assembly must address healthcare, youth development, education, physical infrastructure, security, tourism, and inter-island transportation. Why then, Madam Presiding Officer, when our country is in a recession, do we want to allocate more resources for entrepreneurs when there are so many other areas that we can put focus on? Is it only our entrepreneurs that are in need of support and resources from the Assembly? International tourism arrivals has dropped drastically in our island. Tourism, Madam Presiding Officer, and the members opposite has been identified as the main pillar for our diversification efforts. In her contribution at the 9th sitting of the current Assembly, the Secretary for Tourism and Culture indicated that a committee would be set up to revamp sport tourism. This is a good idea. I could see teams from the UK playing matches on this island. I am sure the next Dwight York would be a product of sport tourism. I could ask the members opposite, which stadium would host these matches? But I already know the answer. None. The sea bridge and air bridge have collapsed, Madam Presiding Officer. Caribbean Airlines, in its efforts to change customer behavior, is now implementing a $50 tax. I asked the members opposite to bring a resolution to this House seeking $50 redress to entrepreneurs each time a flight is delayed or cancelled. The Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago cannot, after 6 tenders, find a vessel to operate the entire service. For over 1 year, this has been a major problem as inter-island transport that is compromising the environment for entrepreneurship. So much so that the chairperson of the Inter-Island Transport Committee, Diane Haddad, has publicly stated that several businesses on the island are facing insolvency or bankruptcy. Why are resources not being allocated to save the business that we already have on the island? What is the value of throwing more resources into creating an entrepreneur to flourish meaningfully in Tobago when the said environment is being significantly compromised by the deplorable state of the sea bridge and air bridge? Does it not make more sense, more common sense, to throw more resources into ensuring that Tobago's entrepreneurs are able to travel to Trinidad as they must to access and export goods and services needed to sustain their enterprises? Madam Presiding Officer, while this is a youth debate, we know the challenges that are faced on a daily basis by all Tobagonians. As a student, like many others, I am studying principles of business in the hopes of one day opening an import-export business. I wish to table the following business scenario to the members opposite. You are awarded a business development grant by the THA and shelf at the Cove Eco-Industrial Park. You are about to close a multi-million US dollar deal, and customer requires that your goods must be delivered to Trinidad on a dependable schedule for exports to international markets. The contract states that you will be fined heavily for late deliveries. You have been presented current and historical data as to the operations of the inter-island ferry. Would you engage in this entrepreneurial activity? If your answer is yes, then I say to you, that making any sense? Madam Presiding Officer, I thank you. member for Bacolet, Mount St. George, to close.
Madam Presiding Officer, we have heard a lot from the opposition today, and from both sides. Above all that was said, Madam Presiding Officer, I want to remind the Honorable House of who we are and who we are supposed to be. Madam Presiding Officer, the Tobago I know was an island where people knew how to cut and contrive. We knew how to be patient and watch a cocoa for basket. We knew how to be honorable and how to have integrity. Even our grandparents raised our past generations by farming for small money. They planted the lands and sent our parents to the university, built homes, and built this island. This Tobago was once an island where women dominated the commerce in town. Should we walk through that same town? If we walk through now, we will find remnants of that legacy. Take, for instance, Parker's or Abraham's store. Madam Presiding Officer, this will not be the first time Tobago will experience economic challenges. We have been broke before. The very reason we joined Trinidad was because the first time our economy collapsed. Madam Presiding Officer, it will be remiss of me not to correct wrong information posited in this House and also correct blatant ignorance being promoted as intelligence from the other side. The minority leader started her presentation by essentially saying that she does not know what the majority means. I would think that someone who sits on the minority will definitely know what a majority looks like.
Members, order please.
If this motion says the majority of Tobagonians are employed by the THA, clearly it cannot be 2% or 20%. It must be greater than 50%. Therefore, the minority to stand in this House and behave as if it does not know that the THA for decades have been the largest employer on the island is simply play smart with stupidness. So, Madam Presiding Officer, we will leave the opposite to oppose. But we on this side will do what we must and do what we need to pass this motion for the benefit of Tobago. Thank you.
Members, the question posed is, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is the largest employer on the island of Tobago, and whereas the challenging economic conditions make it difficult to maintain the number of people employed in the public sector, and whereas a significant number of trained residents have decided to stay in Tobago so that they can make a contribution to the society's development, be it resolved that the Tobago House of Assembly allocate more resources to creating an environment for entrepreneurship to flourish meaningfully. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. All against, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it, the motion is carried.
Madam Presiding Officer, I move that this House be adjourned to a date to be fixed.
The question proposes that this House be adjourned to a date to be fixed. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say nay. All right. This House stands adjourned.
Madam Presiding Officer, Chief Secretary, the Honorable Chief Secretary, Deputy Chief Secretary, all other secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, Assistant Secretary, Deputy Presiding Officer, Assemblymen, councillors, administrators, students, of course, and all the others that are on looking both here and on social media. My name is Juliet Pope, and I have had the honor of working alongside these students for the last 2 weeks. And right now, I feel like a proud parent because they've been my children for the last 2 weeks. Thank you, parents, for lending them to me. It is indeed a pleasure to see such a talented bunch of students. It makes me feel like I'm back in high school because this is what I did all the time while I was there. And it's good to see that this spirit is still alive. And I hope that each one of them in here continues along the path that they have started and don't give up. This is great. You've all done phenomenal in comparison to what you were when I met you 2 weeks ago. Moving on from there quickly, I just want to say thank you all for the opportunity to give these individuals, these young individuals, the chance to be where they are today, because you've literally given them an opportunity to see that there's so much more, not just in what they're learning at school, but what they're experiencing in life. And that is the only way that we can develop them for tomorrow. With that said, I will call on Mrs. Comby, the clerk of the House, to deliver the welcome.
Madam Presiding Officer, Dr. Denise Sawyer-Fatangas, Chief Secretary, Honorable Kelvin Charles, Deputy Chief Secretary, Mr. Joel Jack, Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, Assistant Secretaries, Deputy Presiding Officer, Mr. Ansel Dennis, Assemblymen, Councillors, Administrators, good afternoon. My duty is a simple one this afternoon, is to welcome all of you. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 5th Youth Assembly plenary sitting, which marks the week of the events celebrating Tobago Day. This celebration marks the reconstitution of the Tobago House of Assembly and the impact it has had on Tobago. This, however, would mean very little if we did not include our youth in this process. Today, it's about them, and I'm grateful you took the time to spend this afternoon recognizing their efforts. Thank you, season's greetings, all the best.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Comby to stay close by so that she can assist me in handing out a few tokens to the students. Okay. Ms. Solomon, can you please assist me with the names?
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeremy Chapman. Kingsley Kevin Thompson. Candice Crook. Alex Job Thomas. Aria Joseph.
I'm going to ask a few of the assemblymen to join in the fun, because you've been sitting all day. We're going to start with the Honorable Chief Secretary to please give the next two students their awards.
Jeremy Bayo. Hadassah Pitcher. Hadassah Pitcher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles. We're now going to ask, Councillor Kwesi Devines to assist. Leader of Assembly Business with his bright smile.
Waveney Wilson. Jessica Forbes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Devines. Now I'll ask our Deputy Presiding Officer, Mr. Ansel Dennis.
Kizia Franco. Siobhan King.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis. We'll now ask Assemblyman Farley Augustus to come forward and assist. Augustine, sorry.
Princess Terrell. Maya Ray.
Thank you. Secretary Joel Jack, would you assist us for a moment? Thank you.
Calicia McEwan.
Thank you very much, Secretary Jack. We'll now ask Mr. Hayden Spencer to assist us.
Tevin James. Okay, sorry. Carimo Caesar. Giovanni Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer. I'll ask Mistress Jack to assist us.
Nathan Roberts. Mackenzie Henry.
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. I will ask Mr. Shamari Hector to give us a hand.
Shakina Vanamson. Kyle Pear.
Mr. Hector, thank you very much. Councillor Nadine Stewart Phillip, thank you.
Jeremiah De Leon. Noah Holmes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stewart. Mrs. Phillip. I'll now ask the Honorable Presiding Officer to address the House.
Honorable Chief Secretary, Mr. Kelvin Charles, Leader of Assembly Business, Mr. Kwesi Devines, Deputy Chief Secretary, Assemblyman Joel Jack, in his absence, Minority Leader, Mr. Watson Duke, other Assemblymen and Councillors of the Tobago House of Assembly, Clerk, Mrs. Sharon Irvin Cumby, and administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, principal, teachers, parents, friends of the legislature, our sponsors, Ashani Jack from NLCB, and B-Mobile, or B-Mobile representative, members of the media, debaters, judges. A pleasant good afternoon to all of you. Today is another expression of celebrating the reconstitution of the Tobago House of Assembly since 1980. And for me, this year is significant on two counts. The year 1980 marks the first steps taken then towards an autonomous functioning Tobago House of Assembly as part of a twin island republic. And secondly, it is the year I graduated from high school. Now, I don't want you all to get distracted trying to do the maths there. Listening to the students today, though, brought home for me how much times have changed. Since I didn't have the opportunity at this age when I was getting ready to graduate. And therefore, I hope that the students understand the significance of this opportunity presented to them. We started this 5 years ago in order that they may be able to experience what it is like in here, to understand that this is just another career path, and that when you look around, it is not just about the frontline persons who debate, but you also see many persons who support. And so this is another way of giving them that peep into the window of their future. So for me, celebrating Tobago Day, as it is now called, is about paying recognition to our past and seeing how we can build on it whilst we embrace our future. A future which we in here, as part of the legislature, have had the opportunity to shape outside of the classroom. A glimpse of the future with these leaders in the room today. This, my dear people, is our tomorrow. And after the experience that we have had with our debaters, I am confident, and I hope you are too, that our future is in good hands. These young people who debated today will be better equipped to first and foremost be advocates of the people, because that is really what politics is all about. So whether they become frontline politicians or work elsewhere outside of the political arena, they will be well equipped in making choices that would ultimately improve the quality of lives of Tobagonians, and for that matter, lives of people wherever they go. The legislature is committed to ensuring that young persons understand that this place is theirs. It doesn't belong to politicians. This place is yours. And the arguments in here affect your tomorrows. And that is why you must be a part of it. And you must see yourselves always connected. So this year, the legislature, in understanding the importance of this activity, expanded the program to include a number of other roles. We wanted to include persons who currently do classroom work, I believe they call it the EDPM, for them to understand that the reason why they do that class is so that they can be a part of supporting the legislature, a part of the Hansard unit. We have our young photographer who has been walking and been about taking pictures, because as part of the legislature you need documentation. We have the communication officer, who is also new, the new addition, and she will ensure that the appropriate interviews are done after and press releases go out. And so this is so that they can see that there are many more areas of support than you have as the frontline debaters. And so their work will continue after today, up until a week later, when all of that is completed, including the minutes of today. So at this time, I want you to join me in congratulating all students, present and past, who participated in this lively session. Of course, let me say in advance, when the judges deliver their remarks, that we want to congratulate those who have distinguished themselves and excelled in the debate here this afternoon. And I want to especially commend my future replacement, Madam Presiding Officer. She does look the part, doesn't she? Of course, they would not have done this alone. And so I wish to thank the parents for your support, for your permission to allowing them to do this, the teachers and principals of the 10 high schools and UE Open Campus, along with the trainers, Mr. Gladstone Solomon, Ms. Juliet Pope, and Mrs. Gray. They all focused their activities and gave their all over the past 2 weeks. Yes, it was a very short training period, 2 weeks, in preparing their charges for this day. I hope you all felt as proud as I do when I heard them today. Thanks to the judges, our veteran, Julian Skeet, who has been with us year after year, and the new persons, Mr. Michael Stewart and Ms. Cynthia Alfred, who have given their time and brought their expertise to bear in judging today. Thank you. I always say I don't envy any judge, and today, most of all, I don't envy you. It would be remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to formally congratulate those students who represented Tobago and were quite outstanding at the recent National Youth Parliamentary Debate recently. Let us give them a round of applause in congratulating them. We would like to believe that the legislative outreach program, which allows our youth to experience parliaments outside of this island and this country, international parliaments like those at the United Kingdom and Scotland, where they would have traveled over the last 2 years, that experience contributed to lifting the quality of the debates that we have had and the expanse of the research that they have applied. I want you to know that at least 50% of the students who participated here have traveled to those legislative parliaments internationally and came back and contributed over the last 2016 and 2017. And I really want to commend them for that. This initiative, that initiative, traveling to the Westminster system, has been a partnership between the Assembly Legislature and the National Lottery Commission's Board, NLCB. And I must thank them for their commitment in investing in the youth legislative development agenda. In 2016 and 2017, they bought into the vision, and they partnered with us to ensure that these students can have the experience that they did. And I certainly hope that we can continue this partnership in 2018 and beyond. I want to especially thank the past chairman, Mr. John Siller, and also Mr. Commoner, the Tobago representative on the NLCB, for their support over the past 2 years. Of course, this afternoon session, we also had additional sponsors who would have assisted us in the tokens and prizes for the students, for the most outstanding debaters. So B-Mobile, D-Nexus Technologies, BizCom Solutions, and Mumtaz Wireless, we say thank you. I always believe that we cannot do it alone, and we have to be able to partner with private sector and include them, because it is part of giving back. It is part of the students seeing that private sector is involved hand in hand with government in terms of ensuring the development of Tobago. Finally, I wish to thank the clerk, Mrs. Comby, and members of staff, the coordinators for the event, Sophia Cooper, and also Mr. Marcus Woods, for your tireless efforts to ensure today's success. I want to especially commend that statement that was made. In order to see our future, we have to create it. And so this today was part of us predicting our future in creating this forum. And so I want to wish, again, congratulations to all of you. We were all outstanding in your various roles. Much thanks and season's greetings.
Thank you again, Madam Presiding Officer, Dr. Surford Angus. At this point in time, I'd like to call our head judge, Mr. Julian Skeet, to the podium to assist with not only enlightening us a little bit on how these students were judged, but also to assist us in giving out these beautiful prizes. Thank you.
Chief Secretary in the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Kelvin Charles, Presiding Officer in the Tobago House of Assembly, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, other secretaries, assistant secretaries, and I see a number of administrators here as well, those visiting this evening, and forgive me if I take the time out to specially recognize our Youth Chief Secretary, our young people, and our youth presiding officer, who of course cautiously guided me as I passed in front. So of course I had to recognize and show my due respect. Congratulations and good evening to you all. Let me just indicate this evening that I stand before you on behalf of the panel of judges for this year, including Ms. Cynthia Alfred, of course, no stranger to this area as it relates to linguistics and the English language, and of course her time also contributing to the politics and the island of Tobago. So let's say it for Ms. Cynthia Alfred. And communications consultant, Mr. Michael Stewart, once again, another individual, very supportive of the work of young people, and in particular, I know he has a number of programs quite currently geared at looking how we improve the skill set of our young men in terms of making their contribution as well to the overall landscape and the development of Tobago. And your humble servant, Julian Skeet, happy again to be here. As you would all know, I support anything youth. Now we want to begin by indicating on behalf of the team of judges that let's congratulate our young people here this evening. In fact, in the first instance, we felt that things got off to a slow start, which is kind of understandable because there may have been some levels of nervousness quite naturally. But by the time the energy started to flow on the thoughts and, you know, the comfort zone in the house itself, I want to say that we really saw what we would consider a drastic improvement in terms of the presentations, or let me talk in the young people's term, or the younger person's terms rather, The house was lit. Let me hear you. Now, we wanted to indicate to persons as a means of encouraging you in terms of going forward. It is always very important and critical to be familiar with your content. And what you'd recognize is familiarity with your content allows for a greater level of comfort in your presentation. And quite naturally, it's easier rather for you to convey your points, especially those that you are very passionate about. And in some instances, we saw the variation because we could have told definitely those who were more comfortable with particular areas based on the way in which they would have presented, as against those who may have just probably been reading the content, probably not necessarily looking at it as much as they should have within the last few days or within the last few weeks. And therefore, I want to encourage you as a lesson in going forward, your presentation and debating skills. And I see some shaking their heads, so therefore, talking thing that making sense. But I want to encourage you, if you are coming and you are attempting to prepare yourself to present in the House, don't chance it as you may see some of our current politicians doing in Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago, and in the region. Come prepared to present and come prepared to represent the people that have identified you. We want to indicate as well that we would have certainly recognized some of the individuals who would have presented. We were particularly impressed with the fact that it is easy to find research and content as far as the World Wide Web allows us now. And in fact, we don't even have to research it. If you're on Twitter, you're on IG, you're on Facebook, the information comes to you to let you know that something has happened here in Tobago, something has happened in Trinidad and Tobago, or something has happened in the world. But we were particularly pleased to see the use of current young persons who are excelling in our school system, those scholarship winners and young people who are excelling, to apply it to the relevant content for the motion being debated. Exceptional. For a bit, we thought to ourselves, well, these young people are staying away fully from the current content in the atmosphere. And of course, we were certainly not disappointed when reference was made to current dynamics in terms of our politics here in Tobago, but it was done very tactfully to still apply to the motion at hand. Commendations. We noted particularly one comment we want to caution against, where it is a particular speaker spoke to the attitude of the people and almost went as far to blame the government. I want us to remember as a people, and it is the collective view of the judges, that we have great levels of individual responsibility for our attitudes and actions. And it is very important not for us to think we could simply blame the people that we elect for the kind of attitude we have. We could blame them perhaps for what leads to the attitude. But the attitude at the end of the day is a choice that you make as individuals in terms of how you operate. Once again, I want to take the opportunity to really recognize and to commend you. I want to obviously commend the Assembly Legislature for doing an exceptional job. In fact, it feels good as I sit here. And, I got the opportunity to sit as a judge again this year, and I want to express my appreciation for that. I looked left and right of the House, and I see colleagues of mine, Councillor Kwesi Devines, Assemblyman Farley Augustine, and I see them smiling because we would have all sat in that position very much before, along with others, supporting our young people with these kinds of efforts. So I suppose the smiles I saw on the faces, along with other members of the Tobago House of Assembly, is a clear indication that they are particularly pleased with what they would have seen here this evening as well. So my commendations to you all. And in closing, I want to indicate to you that this program has been running for a number of years, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't take the opportunity to indicate to you the true benefit of your participation in this effort for youth to be directly involved in governance is not simply about what you do today. but it is more so about how you utilize the experience which you have gained here in the house, the experience which you have gained over the period of training, as well as the experience which you have gained by those who had the opportunity to be exposed and to travel abroad, and now use it as a mechanism to support others and to share that knowledge with other young persons like yourself, and more importantly, ensure that that collective sharing therefore leads to greater development and growth for the island of Tobago, led by young people. And so I think, with that said, I shall accept the necessary direction as it relates to the results. So while it's being finalized, let me just note for you, as far as our third place presenter, we would have found very good identification of voice in terms of the presentation skills, the voice flow, and the confidence of the presenter. They'll identify the presenter to you, but let's congratulate them. The second place presenter, we saw a very good use of a sense of humor and, of course, quite articulate in terms of their presentation skills. So let's hear it for our second place. And the first place, without a shadow of a doubt, impressed us, not only as the best presenter, and more than that, very articulate, very current, very humorous, and associating the necessary humor with the relevant motion presented here today. So let's hear it for our first place as well. And so I hand back to the host to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skeet, for enlightening us with such valuable information. Straight to the prizes. Our third, one moment please. Our third place winner, now mind you, you're all winners. First and foremost, you are all winners. Right. But somebody has to have a pretty prize. So, our third place goes to Marquise Henry, Goodwood High School. Please step forward. And we will ask Mr. Skeet to present this prize. Thank you very much. Our second place goes to Cushel Pierre. And we will ask the representative for NLCB to assist us. And the first place for the most current Spitfire debater today would be Ms. Kezia Franco. And we will ask we ask Madam Presiding Officer, Dr. Angus, to come help us. I asked Dr. Angus if she could remain in place to help us hand out some tokens to the judges as well. We have a slight technical difficulty. Give us a moment, please. Thank you. Okay, slight change in delivery. We are going to ask the remaining assemblymen to help us to give out these tokens to our judges. Can I please ask the 3 judges to step forward? And I would like to ask Assemblyman Clarence Jacob, and in order to just move along a bit faster, I'm just going to call all of them forward at the same time. Assemblyman Sheldon Cunningham, can you please, Assistant, yes. So just stand on the side, on the wing, and give us a few minutes. So first judge is Ms. Cynthia Alfred. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Next, we have Mr. Michael Stewart. And I want to ask Dr. Agatha Carrington if she can please assist us. And finally, Mr. Julian Skeet.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, we'd like to do some presentation to the trainers. So we have first we're calling on Mr. Gladstone Solomon. And we'll ask Ms. Claire Raffit. We'll ask Mr. Pitt to present to Ms. Pope. Yes, Ms. Pope is wearing many hats today. And to our third trainer, Ms. Dawn Gray, we'll ask Ms. Marissa Osborne, Assembly Marissa Osborne, to present. And as Dr. Angus would have indicated, the NLCB has been very instrumental in assisting the students and providing funding towards the UK study tour on the Westminster system. So at this time, I will invite Dr. Angus to present to the representative from NLCB. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure that you all are tired of seeing my face now and hearing my voice. So, with that said, and taking into consideration that Dr. Angus would have done such a marvelous job of thanking everyone present for their participation, support in everything that we've done, and their undying commitment to see this go forward, I say thank you again for being a part of the Youth Assembly debate this year, and look forward to seeing you next year and for other debates that we'll have in the upcoming year. Thank you. You are now invited to go through to the tea room for a bit of refreshment. And that is after the Honorable Presiding Officer leaves. I'm not sure which one today now.